Well, hey there. Welcome back. We are always excited to have you on the show.
Hello, hello.
Hey, today is part 2 of a conversation we started last week and realized, wow, this is really long.
We had a lot to share.
That's right. So if you missed last week, you want to make sure to go back and listen to that, maybe before you dive into this week.
Absolutely.
Because what we're talking about are some myths that sometimes we can get stuck in.
Yeah, or hung up on.
Around this idea or strategy of one-on-one time between a bio parent and a bio child.
Right.
And so we challenged you with 2 myths last week. Now we're going to challenge you with 2 more myths, one for step parents and one for bio parents. Yeah. And we really think this is going to challenge you and bring you some value. Yeah. So we will jump right into the conversation, pick it up right where we left off, and we'll do that right after the intro.
Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your step family from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork.
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of step family life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
All right, let's move on to myth number 3. Okay. And this is specifically for the step parent. And myth number 3 is when a step parent believes, I will never be fully accepted or elevated to my proper position in our marriage if my spouse spends time with their bio kids that doesn't include me.
Right.
I feel like I got to be a part of all of it, or else I'm never going to get where I need to go. So, this is a step parent who's concerned that they'll always be stuck on the outside. They're always going to feel like that stranded stranger as long as their partner is actively spending one-on-one time with their kids. Yeah. They're worried about a biological divide in the family that won't ever get resolved. Right. It feels like it's just going to be this way forever. And you know what? This is a valid concern.
It is.
And it can become heightened if there's other issues going on. Like an example would be like an ex bad-mouthing the step-parent or telling the kids that they don't really have to accept you. Like we get that there's all kinds of things that can happen. It can become heightened if there's an actual parent-child allegiance going on in your home between your spouse and their bio child. But often at the root of this myth, there's just a belief or a fear that's creating insecurity and doubt inside of the step parent. Yeah. And man, I've really felt that at the times. Yeah.
And some of this could be connected to the other 2 myths that we've already talked about, right?
Sure.
Fear that we'll never really blend or connect as a family unit.
Yep.
Or that the step kids are going to take over and have way too much power and control in our home.
Yeah.
But there could be all kinds of fears or beliefs going on, and they can trigger an emotionally painful reaction.
Sure.
Things like, I'm not a priority in this family, or my needs aren't as important as my stepkids' needs. And maybe even doubt that your spouse loves you or is committed to making your marriage work.
Sure.
Right? What will happen if the kids never do come to a place of acceptance?
Yeah.
Who will my spouse choose? Are they going to choose me, or are they going to choose their kids?
That's a tough emotion to deal with. Yeah.
And even though you knew going in that kids were part of the package when you chose this person, maybe you didn't have a clear understanding of how that would look once everyone was living under the same roof.
Boy, that's an understatement. Yeah. I remember feeling a bit blindsided shortly after we got married. I really thought that our relationship was going to be the priority. But I quickly realized that not only was Annika part of the package that came with you, but that a huge part of your heart belonged to her, as it really should.
Yeah.
You had a connection with her that I couldn't fully understand. And I often felt like I needed to compete for your time and attention and maybe even kind of fight for my place in our family.
Yeah. It's interesting that you use the word compete, because whatever might be at the root of a step-parent's fear or belief, often their knee-jerk reaction is to compete with their stepkids.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They may try pushing their way in and elevating themselves, often through demands or even threats to their spouse, which is going to put the bio parent into that extreme trapped teammate position.
Right.
Or a step-parent might attempt to claim authority over their stepkids way too quickly and insert themselves before a trusted relationship has developed.
Right.
But unfortunately, these kinds of competitive approaches, they just don't work. And they almost always bring about hurt feelings and some relational damage to the family.
Yeah.
And sometimes that damage is really hard to repair. So it's important to uncover the fears and beliefs as quickly as possible so that you don't move into a competition mindset with your stepkids.
Right, right. And, I just want to point out that the kids aren't the only ones who might feel a bit of insecurity.
Sure.
We talked about that earlier, about their insecurity. It's actually quite natural and common for a step-parent to experience a sense of insecurity as they enter into a family dynamic that's kind of already established, right? Your spouse and their kids, they've got their own culture and some long-standing memories together and things like inside jokes and rituals, and they've got an intimate connection. And a step-parent doesn't quite know how they fit in or if they fit in sometimes into that close-knit bond that existed long before they ever came along.
Yeah.
So it can be really understandable why a step-parent might start to experience that insecurity or feel unsettled, even anxious sometimes. But it's important to find your own sense of security, especially while you're patiently waiting for the blended family bonds to form. It takes some time.
Yeah.
And so here's the counteractive truth around this myth for a step-parent that I'm never going to be elevated or accepted if they keep spending one-on-one time with their kids. The truth is, finding my own sense of security will eventually lead to acceptance and elevation in the family. When you're secure in your developing role as a step-parent and know that you're working toward the long-term goal of a family connection and a healthy marriage, that both-and approach, you're going to be able to stay more calm. You're going to avoid the trap of competing with those stepkids.
Yeah.
And you're going to just be easier to connect with.
Right.
You might be thinking, okay, that sounds great, but how do I actually do that? Well, that's a great question. And we've got just a few tips that we want to touch on that can help a step-parent overcome their fears and start to gain some of that security that they need without resorting to competition with their stepkids.
Yeah.
First, we want to practice some regular self-care.
So important.
Yeah, don't just rely on or expect your spouse or your blended family to meet all your emotional needs. You've got to surround yourself with a trusted network of support that's going to help you to process through your emotions. Maybe you even reach out to a coach or a counselor or a mentor, someone who's really willing to invest in you. And you want to choose to engage in activities that fuel your soul, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's getting a massage or taking a bubble bath. Well, I'm not going to take a bubble bath, but whatever. Maybe it's going for a run or having coffee with a really good friend or journaling or volunteering somewhere and getting involved in a community.
Starting a new hobby.
Absolutely. Take care of your own needs and practice this self-care consistently. That's going to really help you show up well. And especially during that time when your spouse is spending one-on-one time with the kids, that's a perfect time to stop moping around and get out of the house and go do something that you really enjoy and that fills you up so that you can focus on that self-care during that time.
It's essential.
Yeah, you can choose to nurture yourself and grow your sense of security and well-being. I had to take responsibility for this early on. I was thinking just a moment ago about how we laugh about this sometimes, but before we got married, I apologized to you in advance for maybe feeling like you adopted a child rather than married a husband, right? And I wonder, in some of those moments where I was in competition mode with Annika, and really what was going on is I was in one form or another just going, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. Yeah. That probably felt like you adopted a kid.
It did.
Because I was insecure about it. I was insecure about our relationship. Because I felt like your energy, your time, your focus was all about Annika, and I would never have an intimate relationship with you. I'd never catch up. I'm doing air quotes, kind of, so to speak, right? But as I started to learn that my sense of security didn't only lie in my relationship with you or in my relationship with Annika or us as a family, and I started really getting more connected with friends, I did get into some counseling and worked with some mentors, but also just realized, hey, you know, my family's super important to me. My marriage is super important to me, but there's also other things in life that fill me and that I can focus on.
Right.
I started showing up a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And that made a huge difference for us because I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what it did is it started to take the pressure off you.
It did.
And
yeah.
then,
You didn't feel so needy.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you could relax and then you actually wanted to connect with me more, right?
Wanted to invest more in you.
Yeah. I mean, when you got a little kid running around going, you know, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention.
Yeah.
Then pretty soon you're like, leave me alone. Like, I don't want to be around you.
You felt like a little puppy dog to me.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
very needy.
Puppy dogs are cute.
Cute, but needy.
In any case,
Yes.
I know we're rambling here a little bit, but the truth is that my own work on my own security opened up a whole new avenue for connection for you and I.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So you've got to take ownership for that.
Practice self-care.
Practice self-care and build a sense of your own security. Yeah.
Now, another tip for the step parent is to directly ask for what you need in your relationship.
Oh, you mean like, pay attention to me, pay attention to me.
But not in an annoying way.
Okay. All right.
You know, if you're feeling disconnected or insecure, let your spouse know that you need some time to connect or that you need to know they're committed to you. Your spouse isn't a mind reader.
Yeah.
And sometimes we expect our spouses to know exactly what we need.
Right.
And then when they don't, we can become frustrated or hurt, and then we resort to aggressive or passive ways of trying to get our needs met. And this isn't a functional way to communicate or get what you ultimately need. It's actually more on the manipulative side.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So learn to engage in assertive communication with your spouse and be vulnerable with what you're experiencing. And if you need some support with this, because this can be tough, you can find links in the show notes to a couple episodes. One is about assertive communication, and another one is about vulnerability. And these two things are going to help you to work towards finding your own sense of security as well.
Totally. And, you know, you might also need to uproot the underlying fear or the beliefs that are causing you to feel insecure. This might take some deeper self-reflection or work with a counselor or a coach, but it's often the most effective way to move beyond your painful emotions and avoid falling into the competition trap with your stepkids. Our best coaching advice is to not avoid this if it's an issue and you find yourself feeling the urge to compete with your stepkids, or you're overwhelmed with bitterness or discontentment or resentment when your spouse spends that one-on-one time with their kids, or even when they just suggest spending one-on-one time. If that's really irking you
or causing anxiety,
then this is probably an area you need to focus on. Trying to ignore your frustrations or insecurities is going to lead to some destructive patterns, and the result is going to be conflict and more pain for everyone in your family. Get the support you need to find your own sense of security. You notice I'm speaking about this with authority here. And that's because we've been there. I've been there. If you want to gain some true acceptance and to be elevated in your family as a person of strength, integrity, and wisdom, your best chance of getting there is through secure confidence and patience over the long haul. That means you've got to be really solid internally for yourself. Acting out of insecurity, making demands, or entering that competition, it's just a recipe for disaster. In fact, we've seen this to be such a destructive issue for blended families that a while back we published episode 26 called Are You Stuck in a Competition with Your Stepkids? And we'll put a link in the show notes to that episode as well, which can help you to strategically step out of the competition and redirect your focus toward healthy ways of coping with these dynamics.
And, intentionally choosing to end the competition can make a positive impact on your relationship with your spouse and with your stepkids.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And, usually it's the kids who are flooded with insecurity when families blend.
Yep.
They're worried about losing their parent, and they are the ones who often compete with their new step-parent, right? They want time and attention from their bio parent, so they'll push for one-on-one time because they really need it. But in their attempt to get their needs met, kids will naturally tend to kind of activate this competition with a step-parent, only because they're feeling insecure.
Yep.
But it's really up to us as the adults to handle it well and choose not to engage in a competition with a stepchild.
We're so excited to let you know about something brand new we've created just for you.
We've realized that with so many episodes available here on the show, it might feel a bit overwhelming to find the topics that matter most to you. That's why we've created a simple tool for you to receive a personalized playlist focused on your current struggle or your biggest challenge.
That's right. It's called the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz. You'll answer just a few questions, and based on your responses, we'll email you a curated custom playlist of episodes that are specific to you.
This simple quiz will direct you to the most impactful episodes that pertain to you personally and keep you on track in your journey of discovery, learning, and growth. So, scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes for this episode and click the link to take the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz today.
Okay, let's get back to the discussion.
Nothing like two insecure people trying to compete with each other.
Doesn't work well. So if you need help doing that, go back and listen to episode 26. What you don't want to do is put your spouse in a position of having to choose between you and their kids.
Yeah.
This is not a healthy place for either of you, and it's likely going to lead to some very real problems in your marriage.
Totally.
Now, the final tip for step parents is to gain awareness, empathy, and the right mindset around this, which you're doing today just by listening to our podcast.
Yay.
So good job. But we encourage you to continue to learn everything you can about these unique dynamics, and especially around your stepkids' perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Learn about their history, their hurts, and their losses.
Yeah.
Things that happened long before you came along, but they will inevitably impact how the kids respond to you and to your blended dynamic. So you want to understand that. And we've put links in the show notes to some other insightful episodes so that you can continue to discover the best way to approach your blended family challenges.
Yep.
And we encourage you to keep going.
Yeah, for sure.
Knowledge is power. And when you're able to understand more about the challenges and the pain that you're experiencing, you'll have the capacity to stay calm, to stay empowered, and to show up well and make wise decisions as you move forward as a couple to lead your blended family.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well done. Well, we could just about end it right there, but we've got one more myth.
One more myth.
What's the fourth myth, honey?
The final myth, number 4, and this one applies to a bio parent, is this. Spending exclusive time with my bio kids will hurt my spouse and cause conflict in my marriage.
So you just keep trapped in that statement as a bio parent. That, this is never going to work.
Yeah, this is such a tough one for a bio parent who's feeling like a trapped teammate.
Sure.
They just want everyone to be happy and get along, but they feel stuck between their spouse and their kids. And whatever decision they do make, they know that someone is going to be disappointed with them.
For sure.
So hard. I've been there. And this myth can easily become a reality for many blended couples because it's pretty common when a bio parent can, they sense that their kids are feeling insecure and they understand that their kids really do need that one-on-one time with them and they want to provide it. But when they do provide it, their spouse expresses some kind of pain, right? They might get offended or feel neglected. And this inevitably creates conflict.
Yeah.
And at that point, the bio parent usually responds in one of two ways. First, they might insist on spending one-on-one time with their kids, even though their spouse opposes that.
Right.
and they retreat into the emotional safety of their biological kids. Okay. And sometimes the attitude becomes, well, you knew my kids were part of the package, so you'll just have to deal with it. And of course, the result is more ongoing conflict because now their spouse feels unheard and disrespected and even abandoned.
Yeah, so that's kind of one, they're stiff-arming their spouse and saying, too bad, I'm spending this one-on-one time.
Right.
Yeah. You know, another way that a biological parent might respond is to accommodate the spouse by forfeiting that one-on-one time with the kids, kind of almost stiff-arming the kids. They might have bought into those first two myths, that one-on-one time creates a division, or that it's going to give the kids too much power and control. And while this approach might temporarily deflect some conflict in the marriage relationship, it actually increases overall family tension because the kids are probably going to still feel insecure or threatened. And then they're going to start acting out or shutting down or verbally expressing their frustration and needs, right? And then we're back to square
resolved.
one, right? So family time becomes stressful. That sparks more conflict, not only in these parent-child relationships, but also in the couple relationship too. Yeah.
So it's funny, avoiding the initial conflict when your spouse opposes one-on-one time ends up creating more family conflict.
Yikes.
And this will inevitably stall the bonding process and possibly cause some relational damage.
Sure.
This approach is also going to increase the biological parents' anxiety and guilt because they can see how their kids are struggling. And so they might respond by leaning into their kids and becoming highly focused on their kids' well-being, which could easily ignite feelings of resentment for their spouse.
Right. Yeah, totally.
It's kind of a cycle. And now there's even more conflict. And the trapped teammate can't seem to get anything right or meet anyone's needs.
Yeah.
And they end up feeling hopelessly defeated and sometimes even paralyzed.
Totally.
It's a tough place to be.
Yeah. So, you know, the counteractive truth around this myth that the bio parent feels, hey, if I spend this one-on-one time with my kids, it's going to hurt my spouse and cause conflict. The counteractive truth is we can work together as a couple to find a solution that meets everyone's needs.
Absolutely.
Man, that feels impossible sometimes, but we're here to tell you it is possible. See, even though the trapped teammate feels like they have to choose between their spouse and their kids, the truth is they really don't. This is what we might call the fool's choice, because it's not a choice you really ever need to make. Every bio parent can learn how to show up well and find practical ways to meet the needs of their spouse and their kids. Now, that's not to say it's always easy, and it can feel overwhelming sometimes, but it is possible. We've helped many step couples navigate through this and discover healthy solutions that work for everyone. And we've had to figure this out ourselves as well.
Yeah. And to help you get started, here's a few tips for the bio parent. First, listen carefully and with curiosity to your spouse's concerns.
Yeah.
Really hear what they're experiencing. Even if you don't fully understand their emotional pain, choosing to acknowledge that it's real for them and affirming them is best.
Yeah.
You can affirm them by saying things like, you know, I can see how hard this is for you when I spend time with my kids. It sounds like you're feeling left out. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then listen some more.
Yeah, for sure. Listen.
Yeah. Now you're not trying to fix anything or convince them to feel differently. Just allow them to express the painful reality of feeling like a stranded stranger and let them know that you see their pain and that you care. This is hard.
Yeah.
What you really want to avoid is getting defensive or offended when your spouse shares their concerns.
Right.
Keep in mind that a complaint is not the same thing as a personal criticism against you.
Yeah, two different things.
Yeah. So do your best to stay in that curiosity mindset and hear them out.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if you hear or even sense that your spouse is experiencing some fear or doubt or feeling insecure in your relationship as a couple, you can affirm your commitment to them. You know, they might be just feeling really disconnected in the relationship, which will definitely make it hard to accept that one-on-one bio time when you go and spend it with your kids. So maybe you'll intentionally do something meaningful to build some more connection, like plan a romantic date night or speak their love language to them in some way. You can listen to them, like Kim just said, and then follow that up with, hey, I just want you to know I really love you and I'm committed to you. And I'm so grateful that we're working through this together.
And we can work through it. Yeah.
You can proactively do things for your spouse that builds security in your relationship. And that's going to help to ease the tension of that feeling of the stranded stranger that they might have.
Absolutely.
And if you want to learn more about how to strategically reduce the pain of this stranded stranger and trapped teammate dynamic that we keep talking about, we do a deep dive into that in episodes 21 through 23. And we've put a link to those, that just the first one to episode 21 in the show notes. And you can kind of start that series. But that's a really common dynamic that this whole one-on-one time can be challenging around.
Yeah, if you haven't already listened to those episodes 21 through 23, that's a great next step, because those painful realities for blended couples is at the root of what can make one-on-one time so challenging.
Sure.
So you really do need to understand why that's a reality, and then discover what you can do to overcome it.
For sure.
There are ways to get through that.
Yep.
Another tip for the bio parent is to thoughtfully plan how you can create a rhythm of connection that will help you to invest in all the important relationships and work towards that long-term goal, right? If you want to move away from choosing between your kids and your spouse, then what you really need to do is find a healthy rhythm that meets the relational needs of both your kids and your spouse.
Yep.
And if you're a step parent, you'll need to make time to connect with your stepkids as well. That's part of the equation. And, being intentional around our time and making these connections happen, it's a hard job. But you can't expect that it's naturally or easily just going to happen.
Sure.
Because it most likely won't play out that way.
Right.
So start intentionally planning how you'll make that happen by thoughtfully reserving time and finding the right rhythm that helps you to meet everyone's needs. And episode 3 that we are going to put in the show notes for you, it's all about that. If you need some
3, that was 100 episodes ago.
I know.
Wow.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
It's still a great episode if you need some practical ideas on how to balance and find that right rhythm of meeting everyone's needs.
That's right. And as you're working hard on that, you've got to begin the process of elevating your spouse into a foundational position of leadership in your home and with your kids. This isn't easy either, and it's going to take some time and intentional action. But that fear your spouse might have of never being elevated in your home and being stuck in that stranded stranger position, it's a valid concern, and we've seen couples struggle with it for years. Yes, you do need to provide your kids with a sense of security through that one-on-one time so that they know your relationship with them is still important to you. And over time, they also need to understand that your relationship with your new spouse is important as well. Your long-term goal is to gradually bring everyone together, not just to maintain one-on-one time with your kids the same way you're doing it today forever and ever. And there's some solid strategies around how to do that well. We don't have time to go into all of those right now, but we did an entire episode on the topic because it's so important. And so we'll put a link in the show notes for that one as well. It's episode 49 called Should Your Highest Priority Be Your Marriage or Your Kids? Yeah,
all about elevating the step parent. So important. All right, so there you have it.
Wow.
4 myths around one-on-one biological time that unfortunately do sometimes become painful realities for blended families.
Sure.
But they don't have to, right? We've shared those counteractive truths around each myth that every couple can adopt instead of those myths. And we've mapped out some practical tips, and we've loaded you up with lots and lots of resources.
Boy, that's like a library in the show notes right now.
So you can continue learning and growing. And we encourage you to take action now, today. Don't wait.
Right. Go listen to another episode right now.
Because we've seen the relational damage that can happen when this issue isn't addressed or handled well. Sometimes children become distant or even estranged from their parent because they never felt that security they needed in the new blended family dynamic. And this is a heartbreaking reality for the kids, but also for that bio parent who's lost the close connection with their kids, and they're now missing out on being that involved parent that they want to be. And the marital damage that can happen, ongoing conflict, resentment, and getting stuck in the painful realities of being a trapped teammate and a stranded stranger. But you know what? You don't have to experience all of that. You can focus on the long run, the bigger picture, by working through the difficult emotions, steering clear of these myths, and instead focus on the counteractive truths. And eventually you can experience that connected family that you originally dreamed of. Yeah. You can get there.
Yeah, you totally can. And it's really fun to be on that end of the spectrum, you know? And we found that the most successful step-family couples are those who are willing to put themselves into the shoes of other family members, to have some empathy and understanding around each family member's unique experience. Yeah. These couples realize they might have some individual blind spots or emotional reactions or even some misguided assumptions, and they're ready to challenge them.
Yeah.
They're ready to own up to their mistakes, admit that they've got some things to learn about blended family dynamics, and as they take some intentional steps forward, they discover new approaches to their challenges. They're able to replace criticism with a curiosity mindset, and they become flexible rather than rigid, and they remain teachable, patient, and humble instead of demanding that things go their way.
Right.
I've had to do all of that.
We both have.
Ultimately, this is what it takes to blend successfully and experience unity as a couple and genuine connection with the family.
Yeah, and you can get there.
Absolutely. It is possible. So we hope that these 4 myths have challenged you, and we hope that the 4 counteractive truths to those myths have really helped you.
We also hope you know we're here if you need help.
Absolutely.
Reach out to us.
Reach out and make an appointment when you need some help. But for now, we're going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.